Hello, everybody. Welcome to Connect in Cannabis, brought to you by Wrazel. I'm your host, Brian Holler. I hope everyone's having a great day out there. Today's special guest is Tracy Ryan, founder of CKSoul, formerly CannaKids. We're here to talk to her about her and her daughter's amazing inspirational story, the transition from CannaKids into CKSoul, and also some exciting research that they're a part of. So we're very much looking forward to that discussion. But of course, first, I'd like to talk to you about California Lightworks. Since 2008, California Lightworks has been guided by a vision focused on the research, design, development, and manufacturing of state-of-the-art commercial LED grow lights and automation equipment for greenhouse and indoor horticulture. By applying the latest advances in high-efficiency, solid-state lighting and controls technology, their team provides worldwide growers new grow lights that deliver clear benefits at a competitive price. Backed by their solid reputation for standing behind their products, California Lightworks also offers industry-leading warranties on all their commercial grow lights. To learn more about California Lightworks, go to californialightworks.com, or to learn more about their investment opportunity, go to the investment marketplace at wrazel.com. All right, Tracy Ryan, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, of course. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Let's dive right in, of course. So obviously, you are known for CannaKids, which has now transitioned into CKSoul. Can you talk to us a little bit about that change?
Yeah, it's a new world in the world of cannabis, and a lot has happened since legalization. We were really doing well before all the new rules came down, and that changed. We got permission to use our name CannaKids from the state because it was decided that we were marketing to the parents of children and not children themselves. Nothing that we did ever looked pediatric. But the dispensaries were really concerned about the name because of the new laws around marketing to children. The taxation became astronomical. You got a 45% tax at a lot of the counters, sometimes 35%. It's high regardless. Yeah. I believe a lot of these parents have had to also go to the black market because they just can't afford the high prices. They could barely afford it before that. Sure. So the tincture market, I feel, has shrank in those regards. And we also have always catered to patients of all ages. We've always helped the young and the old. We call it cradle to grave. And because of that, there was always that issue with a little bit of confusion with the name kids in the brand. And so whereas my heart is always with the kids, there's so many adults and elderly people out there as well that we've continued to help. And we just didn't want anybody to think they couldn't take our medicine. So we wanted to offer it to a broader audience. We wanted to, really work on our formulations. And our formulations are almost the same. They're still as rich and as delicious and yummy with all the terpenes and like a really solid cannabinoid profile. We just wanted to open ourselves up a little bit more.
Sure, and that makes a lot of sense. It's I think a good lesson for everybody to hear. I mean, CannaKids was well known. That was a brand that people knew certainly in the cannabis space, and if not outside of it. And even a company that well known, when forced to pivot, can do so and gain massive benefit from it. Right? You were able to analyze why, create more of a space for yourselves, and then execute accordingly. So
yeah, we really tried to do that. It's been an interesting journey because we've literally launched in the middle of the pandemic.
Yep.
420. So it's been strange to say the least. It definitely wasn't the launch we intended. We were originally going to launch at Hall of Flowers in NorCal, right. Massive show where we were going to be in front of all these incredible consumers doing B2B, and that shifted. So now everything has been virtual, which is, thank God for technology.
Absolutely.
It's been a real benefit through all of this.
Absolutely. And, I really wanted Hall of Flowers too. I was really excited to go this year, and it was going to be a really good one. And, it's interesting. You're talking about kind of the pivots that people have had to make, and you guys are, rebranding and relaunching products in the midst of a pandemic. But of course, that's nothing in terms of the adversity that you've had to face, of course, you and your daughter in your life. So maybe we'll go back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, there was some inspiration for you to get into the cannabis space in the first place. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite the journey, I have to say. It was when my daughter was 8.5 months old that her left eye began to shake. And it was through a series of doctor's appointments. On that Monday, we went to her pediatrician. On that Tuesday, we went to ophthalmology to have her eyes looked at. On Wednesday, we're in neurology, and on Friday, we were in an MRI. And that weekend, we got a call from her pediatrician with the diagnosis that she had a low-grade brain tumor. It's called an optic pathway glioma. It's grade 1. Follows the optic tract, attacks those nerves, and then spreads throughout the brain. And what's different about these is that with grade 1 tumors, chemotherapy doesn't get rid of them. The goal is to arrest the development of these tumors and to just stop them in their track and keep them from growing. So the reason that it doesn't get rid of them is because chemo only goes after dividing cells. It can't see the cells if they're not dividing. So these cells, because it's a slow growing tumor, they rarely divide. They divide slowly. So when chemo goes into the body, that's, it'll stop it from dividing, but it won't kill it off. Well, when we started, looking into all of these holistic approaches, because we were baffled when we discovered that only 4 new drugs have been brought to market for children in 40 years, and that there was only 3.8% of all government funding that was going to pediatric cancer research, we then became very aware that the drugs our daughter was going to be taking were very toxic. They were old, the protocols were old, and there just were no new advancements. So we started looking for everything. This was a baby getting chemo pumped into them, which was the only option. And so it was through this crazy random chain of events on social media that we got connected to talk show host and film star Ricki Lake and her producing partner, Abby Epstein. They originally did the documentary, The Business of Being Born. They've done several others. But it was that documentary that I actually watched and tried for a natural childbirth with my daughter before she was even born. I'd actually met Abby when I was pregnant with Sophie, when I was volunteering for a Pregnancy Awareness Month event that was happening at the Skirball Center here in LA. Full circle.
That's right.
That was crazy. I got introduced to these women, and I grew up on Ricki Lake. I mean, I watched the show for like 10 years. So when I got introduced to these women, I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. It was only within like a couple of weeks of Sophie's diagnosis. And when they started telling us that they had begun a new documentary that's called Weed the People, you can now watch it on Netflix. It follows our family for 6 years. When they started telling us that medical cannabis could be used for cancer, we were blown away. Now, we'd already heard about it from my husband's old roommate, but he lived in India, and he had become this very free spirit and was hanging out with a very spiritual crowd, and we just thought they were really high. When he first told me about this, we're like, wow, these guys are smoking a lot of dope. Give weed to a baby. But then when Abby and Ricki brought it to us, and they then handed us the research, and they said, look at this case of this child who had it on their passy, and the brain tumor was shrinking, and this doctor reported it. Look at this video of this little girl who is taking oil, who's getting better. Look at the research in animal models that's being done on gliomas that's showing cannabis shrinking glioma tumors in mice. I was like, oh my God, how do we not know about this? How has this been hidden from us for so long? And how, as a cannabis, I wasn't using cannabis then. When I started dating my husband, he made me quit smoking pot. The gateway drug to cocaine and heroin. He was like, you can't be doing that. You're going to become a drug addict. Oh, so funny. I was never a stoner. I was just a recreational user. I used to smoke with my friends and sing and play guitar, go to the movies, and just do something like that. And clean. I love cleaning when I'm high. I absolutely love it. Yep. But he had made me quit when 15 years ago, 13 years ago when we started dating. So, this being brought to us in the first place was insane. But then for us to actually find out this was a medicine, it made a lot of sense to me because it was always very therapeutic for me. Even though I was using it to get high, it made me so creative. It made me so happy. I was so just, at peace. The noise of the world would shut down. I was relaxed. I was calm. And I just got to be present with my friends when I was with them. It was a very kind of unifying act when we would all smoke together. It wasn't like going out. I didn't like to smoke and go out to clubs. I liked to just be with my friends and listen to music. And there's
a lot of, it's a very community-based kind of act. The culture around cannabis is very welcoming, and we share this. And just to elaborate. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, we would go to the 420 festivals in the park and we'd just listen to music and dance and just be together. And
That's right.
on a sunny day. And it was harmless. And we never really understood why it was illegal in the first place when we were smoking it. Yeah. Then for these women to bring it in and show us this science, we were like, okay, maybe, everybody looks for a reason as to why things happen to them. Why me, why me, why me? And I've always been one of those people that looks at my life and says, okay, that happened to me and it was really awful, but this came out of it. This beautiful thing came out of it. All these lessons that have helped me grow, all of this knowledge that I learned through the pain. Like, I've always been that silver lining person.
Sure.
So I started looking at this and I'm just like, why is this happening to my family? And then Ricky and Abby come along within a couple of weeks. And I looked at my husband. I was like, maybe this is why our kid has a tumor. Maybe this is why God gave us breath. Maybe there is something more to this medicine, and maybe we're just the messengers of it. Maybe this is what Sophie's here for. Maybe she's supposed to bring this medicine forward. It gives me chills to still think about it, because there was a lot of weird things going on in my house, like lights flickering and toys going off and hummingbirds showing up, like crazy things anytime we talk about cannabis in our house that people witnessed. My husband witnessed, I witnessed, people that come over would witness. The whole reason we started CannaKids is because I was on the phone with my former business partner, and I was actually sitting I had my knees on this chair, but it was facing a window. I was looking out the window, and we were talking about whether or not we were going to build a grow with money that he was going to put into the company. And a hummingbird came up to the window and looked me dead in the face right when I started talking about this. And I said, and his name was Josh as well, like my husband's. I was like, Josh, you're never going to believe what's outside my window right now. And he's like, it's a hummingbird, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm going to give you $100,000 for a grow. And that's how CannaKids started. So
wow, that's I don't care what your spiritual beliefs are. I don't care if you think it's from the universe or God or whatever. When things like that are happening to you, you need to pay attention. And clearly you did. You guys did.
Yeah, and if you knew of all of the things that have happened along the journey, all the connectivity, all the weird chains of events, all the, my daughter's water bottle fell out of her backpack and now I've got her brain tumor growing in humanized mice with a world-leading immunologist, like those kinds of weird things that have continued to happen. And I am very aware of those things. I have been since I was 11 years old. Yeah. I've always looked at signs and followed signs and really used my gut, my instinct to help drive me. Even when people are like, don't name your brand CannaKids. That's the worst name ever. People are going to come after you. They're going to come after your kid. But I knew that children needed to be helped, and I knew they weren't getting any help, and I knew this plant could help them because I'd created a secret CannaKids group on social media with some other moms whose kids were using oils, and I was watching it every day. I was watching kids get better using this plant, and adults for that matter. Adults started coming to our group because we had many experts and people that really had insight around this medicine.
Yeah,
so that's
as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing, well, CannaKids was a great strategy anyways, because it definitely brought attention to the fact that that's what you were doing. So even if you did get pressed or something happened to where you had to kind of change it, it still happened the way it should.
Yes. Well, the name alone did me so much service in the beginning of this journey, because people would hear CannaKids and they'd be like, what? What did she just say?
Right.
Mean the kids? And it would force them into looking into who we are and what we're about and what we had learned and what we were documenting with our child. I mean, in this film on Netflix, there's 5 families that are followed. They started with us, and then we helped bring on more and more families. There's only one family. There's a little boy from Chicago that Abby and Ricky brought on, but the other children we brought on. And you get to watch these kids get better in ways that doctors aren't able to explain, in the ways that eye doctors that specialize in Sophie's kinds of tumor. I mean, he looks at this scan and goes, yeah, you wouldn't normally expect to see these kinds of shrinkage in her tumor with this kind of tumor. They normally don't really shrink. And that was what was so special about Sophie's tumor, is that it being low grade and one that didn't really necessarily shrink traditionally using these types of therapies. She had 85 to 90% shrinkage in the first 13 months on treatment. And it wasn't just that, it was also this immunological response that we started to see with her, and that we've continued to see over the years. My kid's immune system does not function like a kid's immune system on chemotherapy. Now, I'm not saying that her counts didn't drop.
Sure.
Her count would drop, but then she would build this tolerance to the chemo and her counts would stop dropping. And she would be the only kid in all of the chemo ward that wouldn't have to go in when she was on a rest period and have her counts checked because her counts stopped falling. And this would happen therapy after therapy after therapy. And the doctors are like, we don't understand this. Therefore, we're going to give credit to the cannabis. Well, we understand it now. We now know why that's happening through the research that we've done at UCLA that we're about to publish on. And what we've discovered is that cannabis is turning on what's called a natural killer cell system. And that is my research scientist's field of expertise, Dr. Anahi Jewett. She's been studying natural killer cells for 30 years. She's been published over 150 times the top journals in the world. She has human trials going on in Beijing, China with her what's called supercharged natural killer cells. Mm-hmm. What she does is she harvests them from humans. They're called allogeneic cells, which means cells from a healthy adult. And they go through this special process where she supercharges them and then injects them into sick patients. Okay. Well, patient 0 in Beijing had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. One injection of her supercharged natural killer cells in 14 days, the cancer was gone. A year and a half later, still gone, 0 side effects. The guy is fine and had 1 treatment. Wow. So what we found is that cannabis is actually turning those cells back on naturally and supercharging them naturally. When she studied my child's blood when Sophie was 6 years old and on 4 chemotherapies at once, she found that Sophie's immune function was 5x, functioning 5 times better than that of any healthy adult she had studied in 30 years. And what was really crazy about this is, number 1, Sophie's a kid, so she should have an immature immune system.
Right.
Number 2, she was on chemotherapy, which attacks the immune system. Yep. And 3, she had a brain tumor. So why did she even have this brain tumor in the first place? Well, it was a post-surgical cyst that formed on Sophie's brain that we had to drain because of all the pressure that was creating in her head, that we then gave to Dr. Jewett and her team, that led us to find Sophie had 0 natural killer cells in her brain. It was a birth defect. So because of that, and because we worked with Julian Marley, Bob Marley's son, his daughter, Kaveri, had come down with an aggressive brain tumor, grade 4 glioblastoma. And they had flown out here to get Kaveri treatment, but unfortunately they came out at the 9-month mark and they'd only given her 9 months to live. So she'd gotten to us very late. Sure. And it was a glioblastoma. I mean, those are very difficult to treat even with cannabis. Yeah. But we also got Kaveri's fluid from her brain. And then there was another little girl that has, I've been on this journey with her mother almost since the beginning as well. And the little girl's name's Ariel. And she has a tumor much like Sophie's, but she's 18 and has been on chemo since she was a baby. Oh. 18 years this child's been on chemo. So we got her fluid in her brain tissue, and we found the same thing, that these kids didn't have functioning NK cells in their brain. And that was wreaking all kinds of havoc and causing other things in these more aggressive tumors. So Dr. Jewett has now worked on a brain cancer therapeutic because of these kids. Yep. And she is, I believe it's already been patented. She's about to publish on it, and then we're going to work on bringing that to market for these children. But it's cannabis that we have found that is doing this naturally. So we're looking at combo therapies between her cells and our formulations, and then a probiotic that she's created. And what's additionally exciting is that with COVID-19, we're seeing research come out of China showing that COVID is attacking natural killer cells. Yep. These patients that are succumbing to this disease, that have obesity, that have heart disease, that have immunological issues, that are immunocompromised, that's right. They all, by nature, because of these conditions, have a broken NK cell system. So therefore, their immune system is being completely then wiped out by COVID, and they have no way to fight this disease at all because they're left with no immunity. So Dr. Jewett also just published a commentary to the two huge medical journals, immunological medical journals, about COVID-19 and natural killer cells. So we too believe, because of these parallel findings, that by taking medical cannabis, it can amplify your immune system and therefore help protect you further against COVID. And
you've seen a lot of news about that in the last couple of days, maybe last few days. Absolutely. And very exciting, very interesting. I know we don't want to make any big declarative statements here.
I say we believe. Yeah. We're not sure we believe.
But I I'm so excited to hear that this research is being done. And what a blessing, in terms of, just kind of the whole crazy journey that you and your daughter have had to take at this point, or your whole family, excuse me. And, and here we are, how is Sophie?
Oh my gosh, she's so good. So she ended up being on therapy for 6 years, very pesky brain tumor, no natural killer cells in her brain. The cannabis has been so phenomenally beneficial, and we have shown that not only in how her tumor has behaved, but also with her epilepsy. She has epilepsy induced by the parts of the brain that this tumor has irritated.
Yep.
You take her off her cannabis, and within 72 hours, she'll have 10 seizures in 2 days. Otherwise, she'll be stable, and she'll maybe have a baby one every 6 months.
Wow.
3 months on a bad case. So it's also really helped keep her seizures completely under control. She's so chunky and delicious right now. She's been off chemo for 6 months.
Oh, nice.
She just had another scan the other day. 0 chemotherapy left in her body at all. And the tumor's actually improving. We have been working with an incredible healer that is backed by Montel Williams, backed by Maria Menounos. I mean, this woman is working with medical professionals in their clinics all over Southern California when they're open.
Yep.
And she's also been working on Sophie. Sophie's vision is now getting better. She can see letters that are 2 inches tall when otherwise she was completely in the black with this eye. This eye, she can see light and shadows now. This eye, she could only see shadows and one color, which was red. Now she can see all colors. She can see letters. It's incredible. Like, she's getting back to normal. And to meet her, you would have zero idea anything's wrong with her.
That's really, really great to hear. And I know everybody listening will be excited to hear that update. And, actually, I look forward to having you back again in a little while so you can give us an update on that research that's happening, because that is very, very intriguing and interesting. Before we get going, let's kind of bring it full circle. So this has been the journey, and now we even understand why Tracy was inspired to create CannaKids, and now we understand why CannaKids had to be changed into CKSoul. We know there's some really cool research going on that's really spearheaded by, and actually I just thought of something. People out there who are still skeptics, why would people like Ricky Lake or Montel Williams stick their necks out there for this? Do you know how much they could lose?
And Maria Menounos.
They were just BSing everybody?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
she's had me on the show. She's had Ricky on the show. She's had Dr. Bonnie Goldstein from the film on the show. She constantly brings up my stories on her podcast, Better Together. So she believes her and her mom.
Yes, and there's so many more outspoken folks. Kyle Turley's a big part of Wrazel, and he's a great guy for that too. And Ricky certainly has been, a great advocate for cannabis as well. And it's just, I just wish people would realize that these folks have a lot to lose. Mm-hmm. And they are more than willing to do this because they know what it does. And so anyhow, before we get out of here, Tracy, let's make sure that people can see the new CKSoul product. I'd like to see that. Right
here. Yep. So we have beautiful new packaging. You'll see CKS, which is our acronym for CannaKids, so that there's a little bit of a tie-in there. Yep. We have these really cool botanicals on the sides of the packaging. And then we have some light cursive writing over here. And like for this one example, this one says linalool, pinene, and rosemary, because this botanical is rosemary. Linalool and pinene are indigenous to this plant, but it also occurs in this bottle of medicine. So you can look for these. They have different color bottoms. They're color coded. So it's really easy to tell the difference in the different lines. You've got a different botanical for each blend, and they're incredible. They're absolutely beautiful oils, and we're super proud of them, and they're for everybody.
Yes. And anybody can use them. And, obviously educational and nice looking. So win-win, right?
Check out our new website, CKSoul.com, CKSoul.com.
There you go.
Now have that handle on our social media pages, and get to the stores and try the medicine. I mean, I recommend everybody be taking cannabis right now. We have clinical proof that it's helping the immune system. We have clinical proof that it's targeting cancer stem cells and attacking and killing them, and chemo and radiation doesn't even have that ability. That's all is being submitted to the journals this week. So it's a very therapeutic medicine, and when used responsibly, you can mitigate psychoactivity, and we have access to nurses that can help you do that.
Absolutely. And so like I've been saying, if you are interested, check out CKSoul.com, check out their social profiles, check out Tracy Ryan and her social profiles as well if you need. And of course, I'm Brian Holler, and you can find me, Brian Holler or Holler1012 on most platforms. And Wrazel, a great resource for anybody interested in the business side of cannabis. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to doing it again very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Take care.
Bye, everyone.